Hello and welcome back to Power to Radio. Before we get started again, the aforementioned talk that I did with Scott Parker is now live on YouTube. As we recorded it, just the two of us, and then I edited it, which took ages to edit because it's like an hour 45. And I uploaded it to YouTube. So the best way to find it, I believe, because obviously the channel's very new, so it's got no traction if you're just searching it. If you go to my Instagram page, which is Pirated Material, the link is in my bio. So if you're interested in having a watch of that, it's basically Scott breaking down sort of a handful of his works from the 90s to kind of the early 2000s. And it's kind of got sort of pivotal works from his career, so kind of the first stuff he did for Ministry of Sound and a couple of things he did beforehand. And we touch on sort of a lot of different things. And how he helped to shape sort of the identity for Ministry as he was there as the creative director for almost a decade. So yeah, if you want to watch that, it's kind of the same as this, but with a lot more visuals, and you can see my fat head bouncing around the screen. If you want to listen to that, my Instagram is Parity Material, and then the link's in the bio thing. I don't know where you click, but it's there somewhere. There's a post and things about it. But in this episode, I speak to a gentleman called Richard Taylor, who is the founder and CEO of a company called Brandon Consultants that are based in Manchester originally, but they do have an office in London and they're opening up abroad. And we touch on Richard's sort of early influences, what got him into design, sort of his early work. He was fortunate enough to work with the likes of Elmwood and sort of alongside and under Vince Frost, so he touches on that. We touch on what makes Brandon, as has now become sort of a theme with these episodes. And we also touch on influencer marketing and where he sees that going in the future. So yeah, I'll let things play through. We recorded this in person, so it might sound a bit different, but I think I've ran it through like an AI and it sounds really good, I think. So yeah, enjoy. Okay, so for the people listening to I'll start them all the same, basically. For the people listening that don't know yourself, can you give them a bit of a rundown as to who you are and what you do?
So my name's Richard Brandon Taylor. My wife and I set Brandon up 12 years ago now. I've spent 30 years in the creative industry, working in ad agencies, design agencies, WPP, brand design group businesses in the UK, Europe, Middle East. And we decided that we wanted to take the best bits of all of the agencies we worked at previously from strategy, creative and client service and create a new entity, which we did. So we created Brandon. We couldn't think of a better name for the business. So it was my middle name, and we were given sort of one night, we had to set the name the day after, and it was like, right, we can't think of a better name than Brandon. And most clients call it Brandon, or people call it Brandon, but it's actually my middle name. So I think it was meant to be in some regards. So yeah, we just took the best bits of all of the different businesses that we'd worked with over the years, and tried to amalgamate them into something new that's not a WPP or, a big agency network. And we've started to, that's sort of grown arms and legs. And over the years, we've started to build a reputation for helping awaken brands, which is what we do now. And we do that through three things, really: help bring clarity to business and brands, help to understand what ideas can create value for brands and businesses, and then creating experiences for those brands. So it's taken us a journey to get to where we are today, but that's sort of what we're renowned for and what people know us for. Predominantly in the consumer goods space, where we've worked with lots of brands that are sort of either number one or number two in market, and they're looking to stretch the lead and step away from the competition.
Jumping sort of forward on questions, but sort of backwards. Can you remember what sort of originally got you interested into design? Sort of.
Oh yeah, okay. What got me interested in design? That's a great question. We used to have a pub in Sheffield as a family when I was in my, before I even reached teenage. I think I'm just getting into double digits, and we used to be on the brow of a hill. It was a pub called the Robin Hood. It did really well in Helmsfield on the way out of Sheffield into the Peak District. And I used to go weirdly. I used to do this sort of car spotting thing, which sounds freakish now. But I was just trying to, I think I was just trying to work out my way in life. And I once recall there was a Carrera badge that fell off the back of a 911, Porsche 911. And I went and stuck it on my bedroom wall. And it just had beautiful typography, and it's not changed to today. And that's probably why I'm a massive fan of Porsche as a brand. But that got me into typography, and then typography led into design. And design's just somewhere that I've got a natural comfort factor around being.
No, that's fair enough. Yeah. Have you got sort of, is our family in the design world, creative world, or anything like that? Or?
No, my family have been entrepreneurs in the food and drink industry. So we had the Robin Hood pub there. Then we opened a fabled business in Dore, in a sort of wealthy area of Sheffield, which was a French restaurant called the Dauphin, which didn't work. And then years later, my dad decided it was a good idea to open a Irish bar called Finnegan's in Ghent, which we did. That didn't work either, so that was a strange one. And then my mum more recently, she's retired now, but she opened a cafe. Oh no, she took over a cafe in the Peak District called the Three Roofs Cafe, in Castleton, which was a roaring success. So yeah, most of the time that we've had has been around hospitality. But I think what's helped shape me was the time that we spent in the Middle East. So I've spent a lot of time out seeing different parts of the world and exploring. And my mum and dad have always been entrepreneurial in nature. So I think we work internationally now as well. So I think that international nature and the entrepreneurial nature are probably what I took from my family to lead us where we are today.
So I understand you studied at Newcastle University. When you think about that time, is there any sort of standout memories that sort of would shape you going forward?
Yeah, I did. I went to Newcastle University. I wasn't very good at exams. So I went to university through college. So I did a BTEC, weirdly in leisure management, but that I passed that with distinction because it was all around coursework, which in my world's what life's about really. And then I went to Newcastle University and I did the usual BA. It's either an art or a science, either a BSc or a BA. I did that in business management. And I think anyone who does that course is trying to find out what they want to do in the future because it's sort of like a generic course teaching you all things. I realised I hated qualitative and quantitative methods for accounting and finance, my worst subject in the world ever. But there was one course that struck with me, which was around marketing, and that always, like, how people interact with brands and how we engage with brands at a societal level, environmental level, just fascinated me. And I think that led me on a journey to start out in this career. And I started in an ad agency in the Middle East, and I've sort of grown through design businesses over the years. But yeah, I think that was the sort of thing. But nothing specific at Newcastle beyond just working out which discipline I wanted to work at. I think that was the main thing that I got from Newcastle.
Yeah. Did you always know that you wanted to go in sort of the creative and sort of the food market and things? And
I think I always knew that when I was at university, like I say, marketing was the only course or the only subject that I really enjoyed. Out of all of the different ones, I wasn't into accounting. I wasn't, finance wasn't my thing. Obviously, we talk about finance in terms of brand value now, but I just didn't resonate with me. So I think marketing was the one thing that struck me because of the creativity that was born from it. Yeah. And I think I've always leaned into that creative element of of putting something in front of somebody and changing their behavior creatively. I think that's quite powerful, be it film, be it music, be it advertising, be it design. Yeah. I think all of those things shape how we act and behave as human beings. And we all strive to have something we connect to as like a tribal element to it, I suppose.
Can you sort of touch on sort of jumping forward after you've graduated and your first time stepping into an agency? Could you touch on sort of any feelings you had?
I was, I worked at a small advertising agency. I can't remember the name of them now. Many, many moons ago in Dubai. And I did everything from booking the media to, speaking to somebody about a van livery to, we did a campaign for how do you get people to go on Alitalia Airlines to come back to the UK because they had to stop in Rome. So it was like unwind at home, unwind in Rome on your way home sort of thing. And we did a campaign around that. So it was just, I was like Willy Wonka. It was just basically my world. I just found it straight away. And I just absolutely loved the creativity of it. And I loved helping solve business problems with creativity. I think that's just, and I became hooked. And from then on, it's never really felt like a job. It's just always felt like a passion, going to work every day, something I thoroughly enjoy. And I think the industry that you're in, if you can find I say this to a lot of students when I go to talks, but if you can find something that you're passionate about, follow it. And I often say in those talks that I give, if you don't have a passion for design, walk out this room right now.
Yeah.
Because far too many people just stay there, do the course, and then go, I don't really like it. And it's like, if you don't like it now in your university years, move away, because it's not the highest paid job in the world, but it's one of the most fulfilling jobs you'll ever have in the world. So, yeah.
Weirdly, it kind of just goes downhill, not in a way. I mean, it depends on the perspective you look at it from, but you've got kind of all the freedom at uni, haven't you? And then you jump forward and then you're a bit locked in more and kind of all different things. So if you're not enjoying it, then we're not enjoying it. But
no, if you're not embracing, I got Vince Ross, a sort of close friend of mine, and I worked with Vince when we were in Dubai. He was one of the, I think, youngest associates at Pentagram, and he's just an ideas person and like lives and breathes ideas and bleeds them. And Vince and I share the same view that you've got to have a passion for it. If you've not got a passion for whatever you do in life, whatever vocation you take on board, if you've not got a passion for it, then step away, find your passion, because you've got to spend 30, 40, 50 years doing this thing. So make sure it's something you really enjoy. Yeah. And that's hard because the majority of the world can't do that. If you've been through university, that for me is the role of university, is to find your passion. It should help you shape what you want to do next. And if it doesn't, then you've failed, or the university's failed, one or the other. Yeah.
Do you find that, I'm sort of going off on tangents now as well, Sophie, but do you find that university prepares students for the work life?
No. Universities it's a bit like, I was talking to someone today, one of our designers, and his girlfriend's pregnant, and I was saying to him, the difficulty with having a child is, what they do is they prepare you for the birth. They prepare you for that moment, that one moment that lasts anywhere from 8 to, we've had 3 children, my wife and I, so 8 hours to 12 hours. But in that time period, they prepare you for that. What they don't do is tell you what happens when you take this alien child home and what you're supposed to do with it thereafter. Yeah. And I think that's a little bit like university. It takes you so far on a journey to sort of expose you to typography or the use of color or distinctive brand assets or how to compose an image or how to compose an advert. It takes you so far in the skill, but it misses. There's a massive disconnect there between what that is and then when you get into reality of, right, you've got 3 days to smash this brief, and you just look into the poor devil's eyes in front of you and go, crikey, okay, I need to really help the human in front of me, because you've just not been set up for success in that way. So I think university does, and some universities are better than others. And I think that universities are in a position where they're embracing agencies more and trying to bring them in. But I think that harmony is something that needs to be worked on. I mean, we work quite a lot with Sheffield Hallam University about how can we help bring their students on board and take them to the right level. So we've had about, I think 5 or 6 people have left Sheffield Hallam and joined Brandon over the last 12 years. One started as a designer. He's now a design director, and he will go on to become a creative director. Yeah. I think university takes you so far, but I think the commercial reality of actually getting the job and then what does that job entail? There's a void there that could do with being filled. Yeah, it's interesting because I mean I'd agree with that as someone that was a student not too long ago. There you go.
And everybody who I ask who runs creative agencies, they all echo the same thoughts. So it's sort of like, where's the disconnect? Do you know what I mean? It sort of feels
and it's difficult because you're both running your own agendas. Business is a busy running. I'm as an agency owner, I'm busy running the business and growing. I love nothing more than bringing talent through the business and seeing them grow and flourish and either stay here or move on to, other things that they want to do and pursue. But yeah, I think universities could do with getting closer to, getting close. And one of the things that actually is quite interesting is we were talking around this the other day is that universities are focused very much on designers or creatives per se. But there's not really a course for an account manager or how you become an account executive into account management. Or there's not a course for strategy. So those people follow different guises or to get you somewhere. So yeah, I think there's definitely work to be done. I don't know the answer to it, but there's definitely work to be done between universities and business. And also the government supporting creative industries. The government are lackluster in their support of the creative industries when it's one of the largest contributors of GDP in the UK.
Yeah. I don't think that'll change anytime soon.
No, sadly not.
So, yeah, I understand after I don't know where this sits on kind of the timeline of your life, but you would end up working at Armwood at a point. Yeah. Could you touch on sort of your time working there?
Yeah, I was at I was at Elmwood during the growth years, and it was quite an exciting time. I was in a new business development role, so trying to find the agency new client partners that suited where the agency was going and its growth. And Elmwood at that time was very focused on about becoming the world's most effective design agency by the Design Business Association's annual effectiveness awards. It was a good time. It was what I call the growth years. The business had an office or studio in Edinburgh, London and Leeds. I was mainly responsible for Leeds, which was the hub at the time, was the sort of epicenter of the business. And it was great. I mean, it's a strange one when you look back. Elmwood had built its foundation on working with Asda. So if you think of retail brands, there's a lot of value and opportunity there because you've got to work across thousands of SKUs over a year, massive portfolios. You're doing you might be doing wine this week, you might be doing cooked meats next week. And that partnership is a really strong one. And if you look at the agencies in the Yorkshire area, I suppose Leeds predominantly, they've got either Asda you work for or you work for Morrison's, because those two are headquartered in the region. So yeah, it was good to work. It was good to work there during those growth years. And I helped to bring in new businesses into the portfolio. I think we worked with things like Silent Night or Nestle, and bringing those new businesses and new brands into the portfolio. It was a good time. I met my wife there. We still got close friends there. A lot of the people that work at Brandon or associate with Brandon are ex-Elmwood people. Yeah. And the business just grew naturally, and then it became this bigger thing. It started, somebody left Asda and moved to Australia. And at the time, Australia didn't have private label. And this guy said, "We've not got private label here at Coles. Can you bring private label over?" And then Jonathan Sands, to his credit, decided it was a good idea to take that opportunity and run with it. So a number of people left Leeds, flew on a plane, and were working out of Australia. Some of them still live in Australia and now actually, become nationals of Australia. So it was good to see. And then obviously they worked with Asda at the time, was owned by Walmart. So Walmart in North America needed support, and they could see the success that Asda was having in private label. So then they went and took some of that and said, so then Elmwood opened its office in North America. So it was a great period. It's exciting times. I mean, it's a much bigger beast now because it's got studios globally. It's been taken over by a bigger group. But yeah, it's one I look back on with pride before my wife and I moved to the Middle East.
Jumping sort of forward again, I understand you worked with and sort of under Vince Frost, as you kind of mentioned earlier. Could you touch on what it's like sort of working with someone? What are one of the big names in design, so to speak?
Vince is a stubborn fucker like me, and I like that. And I think we got on because we're both stubborn. Yeah. We've both lived expat lives in many different ways and different guises. But Vince is a brave chap. He doesn't, he looks opportunity. He says yes to everything, which I've always questioned over the years whether he should say yes to everything or not. And I'm not sure I've still resolved that in my own head. But Vince will say yes, and then he'll go and ask his team how afterwards. Yeah. But that's mainly because he's a front man and it's easy to do. But Vince is just a great ideas guy. He's just all about ideas. You need someone in that business, that in his business or any creative business, you need somebody that's just full on about ideas, craft, care. I talked about it earlier. My love for the design industry was born from a Porsche Carrera badge, and Vince was renowned for typography. He's got a few books he's produced, but open up any of them and it's about for anything from woodblock type to specifically typography crafted for the Guardian. I think it was the Guardian newspaper. So yeah, Vince is someone you just look at, and I spent time with him just on some of the campaigns we were working on, and it was just great to see the ideas flourish, and just him and a guy called Ant Donovan, who's the creative director, one of the creative directors. I think he's still a lead creative director at Frost in Sydney. Just seeing those two bounce ideas off each other, you just know that you're in the world of genius there, and you just go, "This is great, I'm loving it." And yeah, it was a good time. We worked for, I think it was just a year and a half together before the world imploded in 2008, and I was helping the business trying to extend its opportunity in the Middle East across signage and wayfinding, advertising, design. And we worked on some big pieces of work. We were working with Emar on the Armani Hotel, the launch for that. We were working on signage and wayfinding for Sadiat Golf Club, which was a cool project. We worked with Jumeirah Hotels Group, promoting advertising to promote their hotels in the Middle East region. So yeah, it was good. It was a good time, and I learned a lot about how to run a business, ideas, and just having a passion for what you do. You've got to have, like I said at the outset, you've got to really have a passion for what you do. And Vince has that in abundance.
Yeah. This is kind of the midpoint of the show that I call the Hall of Fame. It's that I'm kind of ripping off Desert Island Discs, but kind of ripping it off. And it's just the idea of, if you could pick one thing that's sort of been the heartbeat of your own career, be it a book, a person, piece of artwork, piece of music, an experience, whatever. What do you think that would be for you?
I think I'd probably get two things. I'd go back to typography, because I think if you come to my house, typography is everywhere. It's just one of those things. I'm fascinated by typography as art, really. I think art and typography, and that's why, the Vince Frost book that he did, I can't remember what it's called, the orange one that he did, was one that I'd definitely recommend. And then I think it was the Smile in the Mind book, which has gone on many different iterations. And I think one of my ambitions for us is to get a piece of work in it, because they keep evolving the versions of it. But yeah, just how design can make you smile. I think there's just nothing more simple than that. It's so powerful, and yet it's taken for granted by many. Yeah. So I think Smile in the Mind and the typography that I've seen are probably the two things that have stood the test of time.
Have you got a favourite typeface? I know it's a hard question. If you haven't got one straight off the...
No, I don't have a favourite. I don't think I have a favourite typeface. No, I think it's like a favourite child. There's just so many typefaces that you do enjoy.
Yeah.
The purity of something like Helvetica, for example, you can't be beaten, probably not. But I just love seeing, I've got a couple of friends who are typographers, and we're cutting some fonts at the moment for clients, and it's just like, I shouldn't be getting involved. What I'm doing right now, I'm supposed to be running and leading the business for the future, but I can't help myself just go, what's happening on that one? Can you just share that with me? So yeah, I don't think there's anyone. I just think it's the art, the beauty and the art of typography and everything. Yeah. Specifically in word marks, in terms of logo type. So, we've been working with Pizza Express and how we can craft the Pizza Express mark and how we can make changes to that to make it more legible. Or, I think it's just the power of typography is underestimated as a tool for a distinctive brand asset and how you grow. And I just fell in love with it.
I had Dan on as well. I can't remember why I did it, Dan Forster.
Yeah. Dan's worked with us. Dan's worked with us loads. So Dan's wife, Jan, and Dan, I think, both worked at Elmwood. Yeah. And Jan was there in a project director capacity, and Dan, don't think I ever worked face to face with Dan, but he's done a few bits for us.
No, he's a nice guy.
Lovely guy, Dan.
Again, sort of jumping forward. You had found Brandon in 2012. Again, if I'm just wrong, just correct me. Could you touch a little bit on sort of what it was like, sort of founding, an agency? I assume it's terrifying.
I think in anything in life, you're always trying to solve a problem when you create a business. And our problem that we were trying to solve on a personal level was Escape London and Escape WPP. Yeah. So I was at the time responsible for Coca-Cola and Nestle's joint venture, which was called Nestea. And it was back in BlackBerry time. It wasn't even iPhone, I don't think. And I was on 24/7 because it was a global program. I was responsible for something like 60 or 70 markets around the world, trying to unite them with a very different corporate culture at Coca-Cola in the States to a very conservative culture in Nestle. So I was trying to do that. And my wife had just helped to do rebranding for Marks and Spencer's for the Olympic year 2012. That was coming out. And they were doing there was the new Marks and Spencer store at Westfield, just outside the Olympic Village. And we just wanted to escape London, have children, have a dog first, then have children. So the plan was then, it was like, well, we could do this on our own and we could do it in we could, like I said, I think we can find the best bits of all of the agencies we work with and try and mash them together into something that's we think's a better and more powerful force for good. That was the sort of founding idea for Brandon. And we did that, and we were lucky. We had an initial client. We were working, I led the design program when I was at Landor Associates for Vlerick Business School, which is Belgium's sort of leading business school. And we'd done the mainstay of the program, a few £100,000. And at that point it was, right, well, there's not going to be that much work that would be of interest and volume and value to Landor Associates, but they would need to take a rollout of that work and help to bring in new programs. And, we had a new campus in Brussels and they needed the interior design doing for that and the branding for that space. So, very, very kindly, Jane, who was the CEO at the time, said, look, it's not going to be of interest for us size and scale wise. I'm happy for you to go and take that on board and do it yourself. So we had a founding client, and then it was, how do we build on that? And I remember there's one funny story I can tell now. I think there was basically, my wife and I started in the attic of a terraced cottage in the valley outside Halifax. So it was there was just two of us, literally knocking heads together because we were so close to each other in terms of sitting next door to each other. And I'd worked previously when I was at Elmwood with the marketing director at the McVitie's Cake Company, which was based in Halifax at the time. I'd worked with him many years ago, and I just sort of did the usual outbound. Can't remember if it was LinkedIn or if LinkedIn existed then, or if it was an email. But I pretended we were a team of 10, and there was like this, and literally it's my wife, myself, and a new dog.
Yeah.
And we started working with McVitie's Cake Company, and weirdly, the brand manager that we had then at the time is now marketing director at one of our clients, and we work with her today. But yeah, we then went to a wedding of a friend of ours in Banff in Canada, and we had to pretend the business was still operating at any given time so we flew out to Banff, and then we flew over to the West Coast, and we did a road trip from San Francisco to Los Angeles, all under the premise for the client that we were still in our office in Halifax. So they didn't even know that the office in Halifax was our bedroom attic. But you look back with fondness and smiles because it's hard bloody work starting out. It's hard work, but we had a network of people that supported us over the year. The freelance community in this country is insanely good. So we had, people, ex-Elmwood, ex-Landor, ex-WPP, people that I've worked with at an agency called Polter Partners in Leeds many moons before that. So we had a network, Cheetham Bell in Manchester. So we had a massive network of talent we could just tap into, and that talent still exists today. But yeah, you just need one or two lucky breaks. And those were two lucky breaks. They were our, Vlerick Business School and McVitie's Cake Company were our two lucky breaks, let's say. And we just built from year on year, we built from there.
Do you ever find that you miss kind of being the underdog almost because you're kind of at a point where you're working with these massive clients and the kind of differences in it?
I think, I read Richard Branson's book. I can't remember what I think it's his autobiography, Virgin something. And it struck home with me that it's good to be a challenger, and I'd argue I've just flown to New York and back with Virgin, and I've flown with British Airways recently. I've flown with, Emirates. I've flown with Flynn Air. I've done a lot of flights in the last 3 or 4 months, and there's just something about Virgin that's a class above. The Emirates was used to be the sort of ceiling, and now just little things like we've gone from metal cutlery to cheap plastic cutlery, and the brand's been diminished. But so I think for me, I'll always be a challenger no matter where I am. Yeah. But it might be that I'm challenging. Now I'd want us to be in a position where we can challenge Landor on a piece of work, which we're not there yet, and we've not been asked to be in the same room together as them in terms of an agency pitch process or recruitment process into that. But I think that's the goal. But then if it was that, it might be that then I want to take on somebody like a Accenture or a KPMG and play at that level, because that's where the value is derived. The higher you play up in the boardroom, the more value there is, and that's where I'd like us to be as a business moving forward. So but the underdog spirit is something we've always felt in this in Brandon and who we are. I mean, we started in the north of England. We've opened in London. Next year, we're going to be opening in North America. That growth is exciting for me, but I think there'll always be an underdog spirit in everything that we do.
Yeah. Could you touch on because the North American stuff, I think I listened to another podcast you did and you mentioned it then. Could you touch on because you're expanding into different areas now, aren't you, kind of slowly?
Yeah. Well, we're starting to work with a lot of multinational businesses now. So we're working specifically in the consumer goods space, and a lot of those are based in North America as well. And, some of the client partners that we're working with in the UK, are relocating to North America and saying, look, can you come and work with us in North America? And as I talked about earlier with Elmwood, Elmwood moved to the States with the Walmart connection, and that created the New York opportunity. What I'm very good at is just joining dots up. It's what I'm good at. And I think the opportunity in the States is a strong one because it's just a much bigger country. The UK market has too many design firms and not enough work, not enough good quality work. And that's valued. I think people have a perception of design and they go, well, that's worth £10,000, that job. And it's like, where are you picking that figure out from? You're just plucking a number out of the air. What's the value of that to your business? And the value of that business, if it was £100,000 rather than £10,000, it could be that you're generating £1 million. So it's £900,000 there. That's what the value. So the value equation is often screwed up, and I think the design industry is always fighting against that. And the challenge that you have with startup companies in our space is that they will do things for cheap or free, and that just diminishes the whole industry. I'm not being negative towards them because they're trying to make their own buck. I get that. But yeah, it's a challenging space and time for a lot of agencies in the UK. A lot of the agencies I see in a similar size to Brandon are looking at or already in North America. I've spent time out there. We've worked on projects and programs out there. And we'll continue to follow that and lean in. And like I say, we're working with multinational companies in Chicago, New York, Atlanta. So the opportunity exists for us to now go over there and stake a claim.
Yes, I sort of imagine this just being British, that the process is easier in terms of the creative process or, whatever, going from a brief to an endpoint is easier with an American company than it is a British company. Is that true?
No, it's not true. The process is very similar. There's cultural differences to the way that they perceive design, and you have to be aware of that. The legal regulations around food and drink in the States are insane. So you need to have somebody that's on top of that. The process is very similar. The one thing that I have noticed in the States, which is quite interesting, is a lot of the people that sit in marketing positions are quite risk averse. They don't like to take risk, and they don't like to take risk because you can be fired tomorrow, and you can be given a box, and you can be walked out of your room. You can literally be given a box and say, right, walk out of the building now. And that's it. So there's a general sense of fear in a lot of businesses that I just want to do a good job and get paid for it. And you see people, when you go out afterwards with these guys for a beer, they're very different to how they behave in the work environment. It's almost like they have to act in a work environment, which is the legislation around employment isn't helping there. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the North American market, you can earn, let's say you've got a program in the UK and it was £100,000. In the States, that program could be $300,000, $400,000. It's 3 to 4 multiples if you know, and the sterling isn't a great currency right now. So, great British design travel well.
I think you did kind of touch on this briefly earlier. If you had to sum up what makes Brandon in sort of no more than 5 words, what do you think they would be for yourself?
2 words: the people.
Fair enough.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's all about, we're a people business, and it's about relationships, and it's about helping. One of our values is about humankind, helping the human in front of you. Whenever, from this conversation with you to whoever I speak to as I walk out this door, we're all about helping people in front of us and solving the problems that they're trying to solve. A lot of the challenges we see at the moment are people in positions where they've just got challenges they just don't know how to solve. They can't even start to think about how to solve them. Our strategy team go in and go, well, this is how we're going to do it. And then they go, oh my God, that's brilliant. Thanks for that. That's amazing. You're going to do that? That is amazing. And we're like, well, yeah, that's what we do. So yeah, I think just help the human in front of you, and the people are what makes Brandon special, and maintaining that culture and growing as we grow. That's my job really. To maintain that globally.
Yeah. You mentioned culture. Could you sort of expand on what that means a little more to Brandon?
Yeah. It's born from the fact that this is a family business. It's my wife and I that started the business, and we wanted to take the best bits of all the agencies we work with. And the strongest culture we probably ever had was Elmwood, when we worked at Elmwood. And we tried to not copy that, but we tried to follow the sort of care and custodianship of the business and the brand and how it looks after its people. And I think we've done that. I mean, we we called it Christmas, not Christmas, because we did our Christmas party in January because we thought that we didn't want to disturb people's December and November when they're busy by having a Christmas party then. And they're usually a bit of a washout Christmas parties. So we this year did a surprise where everyone arrived at a 3 words location, Manchester Airport. In the early hours of the morning, we got on a plane to Marrakesh and we celebrated and helped people. And we've just introduced a buddy system into the business, which has been done by some of the other WPP agencies in the past many years ago when I was there, but trying to help. So you might have a direct line report, but then you also have a buddy in the business you can just go and talk to about personal problems or challenges or opportunities or even work things. Yeah. So we're all about helping each other grow and it's all about growth. Not so much just about commercial growth. Commercial growth is just a scorecard on the side of a cricket pitch. Yeah. If you do everything else, that will just keep going up. So yeah, I think that the culture for me is about making sure there's a family feel to the business. We have our quarterly review that we share with the team, and it's called Frank Time, and we did Frank Time yesterday, and we led with Brandon family. That was the first bit. Well, loads of agencies have put commercials in there, might put creative in there. We put about Brandon family, about what we're doing and where we're going next for summer party and what we're going to be doing thereafter.
No, that's a lovely way of approaching it, I think, isn't it? Yeah. Do you think other agencies do that enough? From that perspective?
I think it's harder the bigger you get.
Yeah, I can imagine, yeah.
When you get into the size of WPP and you ask to take a team of, I don't know, let's say London studio in Landor Associates might now be 100 people. It's easier when you're 40 people. It's still not impossible, but to go and say, to go to WPP and say, I'd like to take people for a 4-day trip to Marrakesh, would you be supportive of this? The answer's probably going to be no.
Yeah.
Just because of the nature of that business and how it has to report to the market.
So yeah, you obviously, as you touched on, a lot of your work is in the food and drink sector, and the idea of translating kind of a taste or something along the lines to something that's visual sounds like a mind-bending task. If you're looking at it from kind of a perspective where you just don't know what it is, could you touch on kind of how that becomes a thing,
Yeah, you try to get to understand what the concept is of the food or the drink that's in front of you and what makes it resonate and why somebody should buy it. And you try and understand what's the product intrinsic, what's special about this. We always look at it through user, occasion and need. Who are we trying to shop to, the occasion, when are they consuming this, and what's the need they're after. So, Coors Light used to be the 5 past 5 beer, the light beer that you could have at 5 past 5. You could go home and you have to work on your way after work, have it drink, and you don't feel like you're sick on the way home. So that goes through the user, the occasion and need. So you just try and look at it through that. And then there's an element of what's happening in the category from terms of semiotics. If it's what's happening visually in the semiotics there. So, is it in a residual dominant code or is it in an emerging code? Do we want to play in that code? Because often challenger brands all play in emerging codes. Whereas if you're a mainstay number 1 or number 2 market, you might be more happy sitting in the dominant codes because you've established those codes. You might take some elements from those. But food and drink's about taking the heart of what's special about the brand and making it grow. So I think it was during COVID. It was during COVID. We were working with Wagamama. So Wagamama wanted to take its food from the restaurants into the supermarket, and we helped them on that journey. So the amount of effort and attention to detail that the development chef, and there's a lead chef there who really wanted to focus in on what's this food about? How can we bring that to life as best as we possibly can so that you at home can make something that's 80% as close to the dish that he would create for you, rather than, if you look at most meal kits in that space, they're probably 50% of the dish, if that. Yeah. So it's about quality, focus and attention. And then you bring it to life as a brand identity that people are going to buy and pick it. And often a lot of it is about, we talk about food porn. There was an M&S advert done years ago, beautiful black video, beautiful soundtrack, soft, soothing, and that sort of sex appeal from that food shot and the music that went with it and the art direction of photography. That's often what's revered at, if you look at copy and language, everyone used to talk about innocent. Everyone wants to be an innocent. I think in terms of food, they set the food photography and food motion. They set the benchmark at Marks and Spencer that everyone else has sort of followed with that sort of food. How do you do food porn in a better way?
Yeah. I can imagine, this is a really sideways question as well, but when you go to the shop, I imagine it takes you like 4 hours to go around the supermarket just because you're looking at everything.
Yeah, it's strange. I do most of the shops I do. My strange habit is when I go abroad, I go into the supermarket first before the hotel. You can read a culture by the supermarket, which sounds strange, but you can go into a supermarket and understand. So if you go into the Middle East, you go into a supermarket, there's a separate pork section for non-Muslims. So yeah, you can read the store. But yeah, I spend a lot of time in supermarkets just looking at what's new, what's the trends, what's happening. The business has evolved for a lot. So we do a lot in food and drink, but now we're doing work in medical devices. We're working with universities in Belgium, in Madrid. So the business has sort of grown arms and legs beyond just food and drink now. And there's opportunity there in terms of professional services. So we've actually got a corporate team at Brandon now, whereas before we just had sort of a consumer goods team. And we're looking to grow into a retail team in time. So yeah, there's a lot of...
Are you going to grow more legs? And I don't know, like to nosy into what the future holds for yourselves, but do you think you'll grow even more legs into different sectors and things?
I think it will, but yeah, I think there'll be some... We're in the process of determining it, so I can't, there's no concrete answer because we've not got there yet. But yeah, we're definitely going to look at what else can we be doing. And it might be doing other things within the spaces we're in. We're being asked to do television commercials more. We're asked to do sort of social digital activation, more shopper marketing. So those elements are things that we're just in the throes of just trying to work out which do we think's right to us and which do we feel like we've got an opportunity to play in with the talent that we've got today, or the people that we'll bring in moving forward.
So yeah, jumping sort of back to the food and drink industry, and in sort of the vein that we were talking about just as well, could you touch on what it's like walking around a shop and just seeing something that you've helped design? Because I assume that's a weird feeling.
Yeah, it's just there's a pride element when you see something there. I walk around with my daughter and she'll point at something and say, did mummy design that? And if she has, you're like, and there's more and more in the supermarket that mummy has designed. There's just a pride element that you've helped that brand grow, or for example, the fact that Wagamama is still on shelf today and it's growing and it's doing more, it's got more SKUs on fixture and it's increasing people's repertoire for eating Asian cuisine across the UK. That's huge. That's amazing thing to see. And I think there's pride in that. Or if we've just worked on Pizza Express's rebrand in the supermarket, and we're doing lots more work with them outside of that in restaurants. But just looking at how there's a sense of pride when you've got a whole 3-meter bay that you've designed of 3 or 4 different pizzas, pizza tiers. And then you've also got things like, lasagna, where we're moving into frozen. So seeing the work that we've done there, there's a sense of pride when you just walk around. And it's great to have helped the people behind the business, and it's great to see the work on the shelf. And it's great to see the work succeeding for those businesses, because we're all about the success. If our work on shelf doesn't win and help the client grow, we're nobody.
Yeah. So yeah, you did a post recently. I can't remember where it was now, because obviously it's been a few weeks. But just talking about the principle of scarcity, and you use prime hydration as kind of the example, how it kind of flooded the market and continues to flood the market, and that sort of the value's kind of gone off of that. But jumping on sort of the back of that, could you touch on what you think of sort of influencer products and influencer marketing and things in that area?
There has to be a sense, Prime's, it was in the Grocer magazine. I was responding to an article in the Grocer which was pointing to the demise of Prime. It was a sort of here today, gone tomorrow. I think you've got to manage your brand very well and very carefully if you want long sustained growth. That was a case of the 2 celebrity founders, or non-celebrities, whatever they are, whatever you classify them as. That was a taste of them cashing in quick on a cultural phenomenon, and it became a cultural phenomenon where people were fighting for it. Fighting for it in supermarkets, going for crazy money on overs on eBay. And I think they just lacked in authenticity. It was just like the gold rush. Let's just take as much money as we can. I think you have to manage your brands carefully. If you look at that compared to how Red Bull would have done that, what have Red Bull done and what Red Bull built over the years, they're 2 very different models, and you've got to build a brand that has authenticity. If you think about Red Bull's, it's, what it's done outside of mainstream sports and how it's done that. I think they've done a really good job at owning a tribe of people. I think they started, if memory serves me, they just started by giving Red Bull out at some of these events like if you're in Nevada on a mountain bike going down the craziest hill in the world, they used to just give free drinks out, and that was the way that they started. So it was quite gradual and organic.
Yeah.
And then they've focused on sort of alternative sports as their thing, as their niche. And I think that niche has become massive, because if you focus on lots of different ones of those and those sports grow, it just grows with you, and it's more of an organic growth, and there's more of a strategy to that growth. Whereas the work that was done on Prime was literally, let's just hit it big on social media. It's then being sold in every single store in the world.
Yeah.
We saw it it was interesting. While the cultural phenomenon was happening here in the UK, I was over in the States, and there was empty fixtures in Target. Like there was full fixtures in Target of Prime that just wasn't being bought.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that's going to hit the UK quite soon, because it was becoming omnipresent everywhere. You could buy it anywhere. And I think that they just didn't manage the brand very well. But whether they just go, I got my money, I don't care, or not, I don't know. But they didn't manage the brand very well, and now they're going to have to try and recover. If they want to continue with that brand, they're going to have to try and recover from a loss where it's just not culturally a phenomenon anymore.
Yeah. Well, given the people that they are and some of the things that come out about them, I can imagine just sort of washing their hands with it and walking away from it personally.
They've taken the money, and
I don't blame them.
I was about to say, they could take the money and run, but I think that there's that true lack of authenticity is what's damaged everybody knew that they've just got their name to it, and it wasn't anything they really cared about. I think that's it. People aren't, kids will buy it for a little, because it's cool to have at school, but that's short-lived. That's a cultural, that's a cultural moment in time, and they've taken that on board. Fair play to them if they've made the money, they don't care anymore. But I'd be surprised if we see it in a year or two, unless they do something radically different with it as a brand.
Do you keep up with kind of any of the other influencer projects that are going on, like a Mr. Beast doing chocolate? I don't know if you know that.
Yeah.
And sort of the Sidemen, they do a load of stuff. They've just got like beef jerky and Tesco and things, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, I think, it's dangerous if you associate yourself with another human being that could just go off the rails.
Yeah.
You just talked about those two that could go off the rails to Prime, and they, some of the things that come out of their mouths, you go, what the hell are they thinking about? And I think there's a danger associated with that.
Yeah.
I do worry about social media influencers and brands and the longevity. I just think, unless there's an authenticity to it and there's somebody there that's really passionate about something. I mean, Lloyd Grossman in pasta sauces for years was a thing. Now, you don't probably even know who Lloyd Grossman was. He was a TV personality that used to do Through the Keyhole, and he did some chef cooking programs. But people that I'm 50 years old this year, but people that are sort of in their 30s, like, who the hell's this Lloyd Grossman? I don't know who he is. He's not on Pack anymore. And I think, but the brand then builds its own life, and it builds its own, and takes on its own meaning. So I think the people, brands and celebrities can endorse brands, but I always struggle with the quality of the product intrinsic and just what it's about. I mean, Paul Newman did the sauces, and I think that still holds true today because it was linked to a charity. There's an authenticity there.
Yeah.
And I always come back to, is it anything that we talk about in brand, is it authentic, or are you just doing this to make commercial gain for a quick buck? Most of what I see in that space is just commercial gain, quick buck, no authenticity. And consumers and people, human beings, just see through that. They might not see through it immediately. They might give it a go. But if the product's not of the quality, or the service doesn't have to be a product, if the product or service isn't of quality, then people will run away in their droves.
Yeah, I think that's something that's sort of becoming more of a thing. Like, I spoke to people in sort of fashion and things before on this, and they mentioned the same sort of thing where almost consumers becoming more sort of
savvy.
Yeah, and they're realizing if something is just kind of just very 2D, they go, oh no, and I can see that now,
Yeah, I just posted something today on LinkedIn about Walmart in the States have just created a new mid-tier brand, and it's not Walmart branded. It's almost like a direct-to-consumer brand. And then someone's questioned me and said, why haven't they called it a Walmart brand? And I'm like, the audience that they're trying to attract, the Gen Z audience that they're trying to attract, are into direct-to-consumer brands. They probably wouldn't buy it if it had Walmart on it. And some of these are sort of like organic food products, let's say. So and in that case, I don't think the shopper would look into it to the level that maybe they do. Maybe I'm misguided, but I don't think most of the population in the States will be looking at that and going, oh, that's Walmart's own label. Whereas if you go to, Asda Extra Special, it's from Asda.
Yeah.
But it does a different job, a different audience, different need.
Yeah.
So I think, but shoppers generally, when they are buying certain products in certain categories, want the authenticity and to know that the product within is of a quality that they deem suitable for their life. Otherwise, it's just a fashion item you're just carrying around to say, I've got the latest bar, I've got the latest buy X. It's like insert name. I'll be honest, I've not got much time for it. I just think that there's too many people just trying to cash in. And I think the question is probably a bigger one around that whole celebrity, or as I call them, non-celebrities often, culture and how it moves forward. I think there's lots of little tribes being created, but I question where that's going to go in the future.
Yeah. Could you touch on what kind of an average job looked like for yourselves, sort of from brief to endpoint? Is there sort of a system you go about every project with, or is it kind of more fluid?
So every agency in the world goes through a similar process, and I'll describe that process.
Yeah.
You go and find something out. It's called discover.
Mm-hmm.
You then go and work out some form of a strategy that links the business strategy to the brand strategy. That's called definition, define. You'll then go design. So you've got the idea, you've got the strategy, you know what it's trying to do against the user, the occasion and need. Then we're going to go and design something that's going to be relevant to that audience. And you'll test it in many different ways. You can use qualitative testing or quantitative testing, or a combination of quali-quant, depending on which subset.
Good word, quali-quant.
Qualitative or quantitative. So you'll test it in that way, and then you'll see which one resonates most with the audience, and then you'll go to market.
Mm-hmm.
So most people follow that process. What we've done at Brandon, which I think is different to the majority of the market, is we've looked at the different types of job or project or program that you're trying to solve. Is it a shift problem? Is it a secure? Or is it a scale? And within each of those, when we do a challenging context session with our clients to understand just what problem it is they're trying to solve. And within each of those three, there's three different gateways of type of product that sits them. So we will then say, you're trying to shift this brand from A to B. And this is what we're going to do. And we'll take you into a journey. So there's a specific journey for that type of program. So we look at it at a slightly different level, at a business level, of what's the problem it's trying to do. Is it trying to secure its market position? Is it trying to shift somewhere? Or is it trying to scale? So scale could be creating one business we've worked with in Scandinavia. They're known for core ingredients and Tex-Mex, but they're looking to move into snacking. So how can we take spices and herbs and take the leverage of the equity there and take them into snacking? So that would be. So we look at it through a different lens slightly, but the design program will still run through a discover, define, design, and deploy. And the deploy is launching into market successfully. And that's not just about launching the packaging into market, but that's launching the brand into market successfully. Because often people think, well, the most important thing is to get this on shelf. No. That's the start of the journey. If you don't have the rates of sale that the supermarket demands, you'll be out of that supermarket in minutes.
So you're kind of changing tact and sort of beginning to round off, but could you touch on sort of student portfolios and sort of when you interview people, what are you looking for, different things?
Yeah. I get frustrated with student portfolios often because students aren't good at editing their own work. And what you tend to find is there's 20 pieces of work they'll put into a student portfolio and it doesn't tell a story. And I, as in anybody looking for talent, have got a limited attention span. Might have got ADHD, that might have something else to do with it. But generally, you don't have much of it. It's like if someone's reviewing awards, it's the same I would say for them. I've sat on a few award juries. You have a limited time to review the work of portfolio. So brevity is important. Keep it simple, stupid. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. No more than 5 pieces of work. And be clear about what you did on the work and how you did it and what the thought process was and why the work is relevant to the business problem that the brand is trying to solve. Or the brand problem the business is trying to solve, one or the other. So I think brevity is, I think there's too many portfolios that are just every single piece of work they've done over a 3-year period. And it's just thrown together in a lackluster way. And also just make sure the portfolio is designed in a nice way. Make sure it's all consistent, make sure the photography is consistent. And then my other bugbear is when you're reviewing portfolios of people that have gone from sort of trying to get a mid-weight job, let's say, or a senior job, is they'll show you the greatest hits of the agency that they're at right now, and they'll claim it all. And I see through that straight away. I'm just like, and that turns me off straight away, because it's like, just show me the 4 or 5 projects you've worked on and what you did on those projects. If you show me the greatest hits, and I had this 2 weeks ago, I had the greatest hits of somebody, and it was that agency's whole show reel. And I was like, well, there's no way you can do it. And, then as ever, I will go and find out about that individual through people I know to see if my assumption is correct. So yeah, just be proud of what you've done. You don't need to do too much. You just need to show 4 or 5 pieces of work. Yeah. Maybe just show 3 pieces of work, but just be in detail about, here's the problem that the business or brand was in. Here's the insight that led to an idea, and here's the idea. That's it. And then if you've got results, this is the results. Obviously, if you're a student, you might have got results, but just the insight. What's the business challenge or problem? What's the insight that led you to the idea? What's the idea, and how can that help the business or brand grow?
Yeah. Is there anything you look for in like a person?
Character, backbone.
Yeah.
I it's one of those things everyone used to say, like, you look for a firm, hard handshake. It's like, well, no, not everybody's got a firm, hard handshake, but you just look for somebody the one question I ask when I'm interviewing people for any role is, well, do I want to go to the pub with this person and have a drink? If the answer to that is no, the interview is over. Yeah. And I've been known to cut interviews quite quickly if I'm not interested, because I just don't want to waste their time or my own time. And sometimes I'll give feedback. So look, that didn't go well because of. Yeah. So I think it's, again, back to my human kind. It's trying to help the person in front of you is really important. But yeah, that'd probably be it.
So beginning to round off, and it's a bit cliche and crap at the end, but I asked everyone the same question. It's just the idea of, if you go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice when you first got started knowing what you know now, what do you think that would be?
Follow your passion. Just simple. Just follow something you enjoy doing, because you're going to have to do it for a long time in your life. If you've not got, if your passion is photography, follow photography. If your passion's numbers, become an accountant. Whatever your passion is, just follow it, because every day you go to work is then not work. It's just fun. Yeah. If not, it's going to be hard.
Yeah, it's a slog. Yeah. And then, super lastly, where can people find yourselves or branding online?
Yeah, it's, I can find us everywhere, I think. Yeah. I mean, I write quite a lot on LinkedIn, so it's Richard Brandon Taylor, so you could find me on LinkedIn. I think it's brandon-consultants.com or .co.uk, where you can find the Brandon identity and all that we do here at Brandon. And they're probably the best places to find.
I was going to touch on, because obviously you've had a rebrand recently. Is there any thought behind that, or is it just
100%? Yeah, I know. We talked a little bit about it earlier, but the business is organically grown over time, and we're now we started working with very small businesses, and then we sort of grew to businesses in the north of England, and now we've grown to working with international and multinational businesses. The identity that we want to portray to help those businesses and brands solve some very big commercial challenges. Where we were before was more of a cool kid design studio, and that's not really where we are today. We're more about helping those businesses solve some really big commercial challenges, and the shift, scale and secure in terms of how we do that, in terms of the products that we offer, help them achieve that. And the new identity is born from that. It's a more grown-up identity that's more akin to what you would find at a WPP Brands Design Group business.
No, that's fair enough. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Let me stop recording.